Hey YouTube, man, it's your boy TJ, man. We got another video, man. There will never be another Jerry Rice. Check it out.
Across 10,000 receiving yards. At the top, Jerry Rice. So far
Jerry
ahead,
Rice.
the gap
God
between him
damn. Wait, hold on.
10,000 receiving yards. At the top, Jerry Rice.
Damn. 22,000 receiving yards. And they shit all the way back here.
So
Damn.
far ahead, the gap between him and number 2 is a full Hall of Fame career. Even if you averaged 1,500 yards for 15 straight seasons, you'd still fall short of catching Rice. This isn't just dominance. These are records that will never be broken. What you saying, guys? It's Zane here. Let's get
You
into it.
gotta think about it. This nigga been playing to like 40 something at receiver though. That's crazy, boy. That's
To the video.
crazy.
Given Rice retired with 38 records, to ensure this video isn't 3 hours long,
38
I'm just
records?
looking at
God
receiving
damn.
yards and touchdowns. Impressive enough on their own. Here are those 57 players that have surpassed 10,000 receiving yards. As we ascend the list, you'll see it's pretty evenly spread. But here we have an outlier, Larry Fitzgerald. And then there's Jerry Rice, whose records are as secure as Fort Knox. It's not just that Rice holds countless receiving records, it's the margins by which he leads. Fitzgerald is closer in yards to the 29th ranked receiver than he is to Rice. The gap between 1 and 2 is larger than the gap between 1 and 26. If you look at passing yards or rushing yards for comparison, the gap between 1 and 2 is nowhere near as wide as it is with receiving yards. The 5,400 yards between Rice and Fitzgerald almost equals the career total of Hall of Fame receiver Lynn Swann. His 208 total touchdowns and 197 receiving touchdowns ranks him number 1 all time. That list also includes running backs. Of the top 25 players on this list, LaDainian Tomlinson has the best average touchdown a season. That was 16.
208 touchdowns? God damn. And like this nigga Jerry Rice gotta be the best receiver, dude.
2 touchdowns per year, but he only actually
crazy.
hit 16 plus touchdowns in 3 seasons. So the average is skewed by a few monster years. It's not realistic year in, year out production. Among receivers, Don Hutson ranks first with 15.
Nigga ain't got no face now with this like the 1954?
0.4 touchdowns a season. He would need nearly 13 years at that pace to pass Rice in receiving touchdowns. In either position, maintaining this production for a decade and a half is near impossible. Rice's most impressive touchdown season came in 1987, when he racked up 22 in a 12-game strike-shortened season. Randy Moss would beat that record in 2007, but that was in a 16-game season. Jerry Rice was on pace for 29 touchdowns in a full season. Now let's put his receiving yard total in perspective. Calvin Johnson has the highest yards per game with at least 100 games played. His 86 yards per game equals 1,463 yards in a 17-game season. To match Rice's record, you'd have to average that for 15 years. Johnson himself only...
I'm gonna keep it real, bro. You ain't catching Rice's record, bro. For you to catch Rice's record, you gonna have to play in your 40s, and there's not a lot of receivers. Matter of fact, he's probably the only receiver to play in his 40s, bro. Receivers, they usually retire around like 36, 37. Like if you play around that age, playing receiver to you 42, that is crazy. And the amount of production that he put up,
He had 3 1,400-yard seasons and played just 9 years. The most 1,400-yard seasons was by Jerry Rice, with 6. Of active players, you have Justin Jefferson with 4 1,400-yard seasons, so just another decade of the same production, and we'll be all set. Of course, the reality is, such high production is not sustainable. The only way to beat Rice's record is through a high volume of games while being productive, just not 1,400 yards a season productive, because obviously your numbers will decline as you get older. However, there's only 4 receivers to ever play at least 250 games. Rice is of course number 1 in NFL history, excluding kickers, punters, and quarterbacks. If you manage to even play 250 games, which is basically 0.1% chance, then that still means you have to average 91.6 yards per game to overtake Rice. That would be the highest average in NFL history, and it would need to be sustained for twice as long as the current record holder, Calvin Johnson, who maintained his average for 9 years. What's even crazier is that Rice tore his ACL and MCL in 1997, when he was 35. He actually returned later the same season, but in doing so, he re-injured himself. He returned the next season.
Yeah. I know he re-injured, so he came back too damn early. The fuck? So you tie your ACL at 35 and you came back the same season? That is crazy.
Season finished with 1,157 yards, which would be the most ever by a player aged 36 or older. Then at 38, already one of
Hey,
the
y'all
oldest
seeing Randy
receivers
Moss
ever,
better than
he left the
Rice? Come
49ers and
on,
his
man.
career should have been over. Yet he played 4 more years, had 2 1,000-yard seasons, a Pro Bowl nod, and a Super Bowl appearance. From age 38 until
40
his
some years
retirement
old
at
dropping
42,
1,000
he
yards
amassed
season.
more receiving yards than every other player in NFL history combined. In fairness, there aren't many people on this list. Rice essentially created a new category of productivity at his position, much like Brady did at quarterback. Speaking of Brady, Brett Favre, and Rice, all these guys have one thing in common. The only players to catch a pass in their 40s. Except Favre caught his own pass for -2 yards, Brady caught one pass for 6 yards, and Rice had 185 receptions for 2,500 yards. If somebody wants to challenge Rice, they're going to have to play into their 40s, but no other receiver has done that. He was
That's
the
what I'm
model of
saying.
consistency, with 14 1,000-yard seasons, 11 1,200-yard seasons, 6 1,400-yard seasons, and 5 15-touchdown seasons. Of course, those are all records. I haven't even mentioned his postseason resume, which includes most receiving yards, most receiving touchdowns, most receiving yards in a Super Bowl, and most points.
Like, for you to catch Jerry Rice's record, you gonna have to play receiver till you're 40. And I don't see that happening, bro. Honestly.
Scored in a Super Bowl. That list goes on. So that's an insight into Rice's
gotta
career
be
by the
real
numbers.
healthy,
But
boy,
what
to
actually made him
be
so
able to
good,
do something
aside
like
from his
that.
longevity? Steve Young tells it best. After coming to clear out his locker a few weeks after winning the Super Bowl in 1995, Young saw Rice running sprints and catching passes from the groundskeeper. You belittle his drive by saying he had just a great work ethic. Most people have an off switch, and they choose when to go all out. Jerry Rice didn't have an off switch. Rice didn't stop once the season came to an end. His off-season workouts were notoriously challenging. We're talking 6 days a week, full intensity. It started at the Hill in Edgewood Park with a 5-mile run, which included sprints up the steepest part. In the afternoon he'd rest, with an intense weight training session. His workouts became mythic, with other NFL players joining him just to see what it was like. Many of these pro athletes were sick before the day was over. This intensity carried over into team practices. Instead of jogging back to the huddle, he'd sprint to the end zone after every catch. You're training for the real game, right? So why not simulate how you'd actually play in it? Such intensity developed unmatched conditioning. While Rice was fresh in the fourth quarter, those guarding him were gassed from chasing him around the field. However, coming out of college, his 4.6 40-yard time was anything but impressive, especially for scouts who drool over physicals. But these experts were missing something. As 49ers general manager John McVay said, to get an accurate 40 time on Jerry, you'd have to have somebody chasing him. Nobody could catch him in those situations. What Rice lacked in speed, he made up for with other defining qualities of a great receiver. According to former corner Ray Buchanan, he ran every route available to perfection, and he ran them all the same, so it was almost impossible to stop. While most receivers are best at a particular route, Rice did it all. A 5-yard slant taken for a 70-yard touchdown, over the middle, sideline grabs, double team, triple team, the deep route. He was even a capable blocker. Those surgically precise routes were on display against even the best. Take Deion Sanders. Rice compiled 60 receptions for over 1,000 yards and 11 touchdowns against him. Over a 17-game season, that would be 102 receptions for over 1,700 yards and 19 touchdowns. That would rank as his second best season ever. And that's against, one of the greatest corners ever. Work ethic, precision, routes, physical toughness, awareness, that hunger. Jerry stayed hungry until the day he retired. But despite being the greatest receiver ever, he wasn't always sure-handed. Kind of important at his position, right? This weakness, once again, simply highlighted Rice's work ethic. Through training, and maybe some extra help. Starting his rookie year in week 14, Rice kickstarted a streak of 274 games with a catch. He once said, "I never caught a football because I saw it, I caught it because I saw it before." He would put in so many reps, making the catch became like muscle memory. Everything Jerry Rice excelled at came back to his unmatched work ethic.
That's what I'm saying. That's what you gotta do, bro. Practice make perfect, bro. You keep practicing, shit just gonna become a habit.
However, you'd think with today's rules that favor receivers even more than in Rice's era, somebody would be on pace to catch him. Yet nobody can escape the reality of father time, so Rice's records seem untouchable. As a quick comparison, what would the other top receivers have to have done to reach Rice? Randy Moss retired with 982 catches for over 1,500 yards and 156 touchdowns. He would need 4 more seasons at his career average to catch Rice's touchdown record, and just over 6 seasons to beat the yardage record. Terrell Owens retired with over 1,000 catches for almost 16,000 yards and 153 touchdowns. He did have more success in his late 30s, even posting 983 yards at 37 in his final season. Rice at 37 though was still going strong and had 2 more 1,000-yard seasons after that. Owens would need 6 more seasons at his career average to catch Rice in yards and 4 more to catch him in touchdowns. Larry Fitzgerald got the closest in receiving yards, but at his career average, it would take him 6 more seasons to catch Rice, and he wasn't even close to the touchdown record. This is also me
Damn, Fitz, Randy Moss, oh damn, they 6,000 yards apart from Jerry. That's crazy.
being generous, assuming they could all maintain their career average. In reality, production sharply drops off when you get into your mid-30s. Well, unless you're Jerry Rice. Modern examples, like Calvin Johnson, Julio Jones, and Antonio Brown, all had explosive starts to their career, but flamed out before they could even reach 35. Even the most recent example, Justin Jefferson, who has so far averaged over 1,600 yards a season. He'd have to maintain this for another 9 years to overtake Rice. But Jefferson already missed half a season in his 3rd year. Jerry Rice didn't miss his first game due to injury until 12 years into his career. It's
What?
incredibly hard to stay healthy and sustain the production for over a decade. Pro Football
Yeah, missed a
Reference did
game
this
in
fun
12 years in
analysis
his
where they
career.
split Jerry Rice's
God
career
damn.
into 2, breaking them into odd and even years. The conclusion? With a career split in 2, Rice is still probably Canton bound. There is no receiver you could make the same case for.
Mhm. That boy Jerry Rice different, but I don't see nobody catching his record, but only person I see catching his record is probably Jay Jettis and Jamar Chase, like I said. And I don't even think that's gonna happen, bro. Like, nigga is a crazy boy. He's definitely the best receiver of all time. Me. Yo, but at the end of that video, man, it's probably make sure you like, subscribe. If you don't, you get out.